Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today I present to you the DreckaPod. Need reed fiber? Then the DreckaPod is for you. By melting and solidifying phosphorus, we are able to trick the Dracos into thinking they have the entire map to run around in, but in reality they can't leave this small room. Every 5 cycles we harden the phosphorus, allowing a duplicate to harvest that sweet, sweet reed fiber. While the Dracopod is expensive, requiring you to melt 600 kilograms of phosphorite, we here at Tuxii Industries thought this was just too cool not to share. Rally your Dracos in the Tuxii Industries Dracopod today. What is reed fiber and why do you need it? Well, in oxygen not included, reed fiber is basically the game's cloth. And with reed fiber, we can create decor items like portraits, snazzy suits, or any other clothing for that matter, and carpeted tile. This isn't really useful. You can make statues and a whole bunch of other decor items cheaper, but reed fiber can be used for this. Reed fiber is also used when you create insulation from Isoresin, which you can get from the tree in Spaced Out or from space in the base game. And insulation is a perfectly insulated tile. No heat transfer occurs unless your liquid can flash to gas. That's one exception. But perfect insulation is another good use. But more importantly, reed fiber is used for atmosuits. And these atmosuits allow us to get into inhospitable environments where, the dupes might not be able to breathe, or it's above 100 degrees or something like that, and the dupes can get in there. But to make an atmosuit, you need reed fiber, and to repair that atmosuit, with the new merge down update, they added that to the game, you also need reed fiber, 1 per repair. Before we get too deep into the Dracopod, I suppose we should talk about the Dracos. Dracos, they live to be 150 cycles old. When they're wild, they tend to lay their egg at about age 100, provided they are never cramped. And their scale growth is, it's affected by the atmosphere that they're in. If they're inside a hydrogen atmosphere, then it's 9% or 4% wild and 13% if you've tamed it. Now, it doesn't matter if it's cramped, if it's hungry, if it's unhappy in any way. It does not affect the scale growth of the critter. The only thing that affects the Draco's scale growth is whether or not it's in hydrogen. So my builds kind of work around this. And it also means that the Draco's kind of broken. We'll show you that later. Here we have the Dracopod in all its glory. As you can see here, this is not a room. It thinks it's a 349 tile room because there's liquid here. And you can notice that the Dracos, they can't leave this room. There's no way they can leave this room because they're blocked by the liquid. And this also blocks them as well, but this is actually for temperature purposes. Don't use. I tried to make this design using an airflow tile here or a pneumatic door even, and both of those the Dracos can get around it. So if you're going to modify this build, don't do that. They'll just get out. So the way this works is I've got this signal counter here set to 5. So what that means is every 5 cycles, this is going to turn on, and this is just recirculating. It's not on right now, but when that counter gets to 5, it turns on this thermal regulator, which is going to stay on as long as this temperature is above 41°C, because phosphorus likes to solidify at about 44.5 degrees. So we take 3 degrees off of it, and we add 3 degrees on the other end when we warm it up. And so the way this works is once this counter reaches 5, this thermal regulator turns on. It cools down the liquid phosphorus until it freezes at 41. You could use a liquid phosphorus sensor here, but it likes to get entombed when, which is an annoying alert when it's hard. So I didn't do that. If you've already got a bunch of thimble reed growing and you don't need reed fiber, but you don't want to, massacre all your Dreckos and not have any Dracos, and you still want to maintain a wild Drecko population and shear them every once in a while, this is how you do it. Because with this, they still grow, they still lay their eggs. We delay their actual life cycle by a bit. They actually end up laying their eggs at about cycle 117 or 115 or something like that, rather than their usual cycle 100. But in return, we get the reed fiber. So it's a win-win. And, you know, it just slows down our reed fiber production just a little bit. But this is free. If you've got wild Dreckos in here, every 25 cycles you're gonna get one shearing out of them for one reed fiber, and all this requires is just a little bit of energy and setup. There's absolutely nothing that needs to go into this, and all you get is reed fiber. That's great. And this is a beautiful wild storage solution, you know, although you gotta melt phosphorite. If you want to tame Dreckos, well, it gets even more crazy. Here is what I was thinking. Like, I thought that this was going to be a niche product that wasn't really going to help people. And so I thought that this would be like your overflow storage for your ranch, where you'd set up like a normal sort of, this is a really basic one, I didn't put any sweepers in, but, you know, you'd set up a ranch or two like this, and then generally you have Dracco overflow. And with Dreckos, when you overflow, you don't send it to a drowning chamber or something like that. You still want the reed fiber out of your overflow. So this is what I was thinking for our overflow. And so, you know, you have your 8 Dreckos inside this ranching room, you know, because this is a 96 tile room, it can support 8. And then you could just send all your eggs down here, and then they would, you know, they would live to be about 33 cycles old, and then they would starve to death. So you'd only get one shearing, and that's only if everything kind of cycled well. I didn't really think that this was a good product as an add-on for a ranch. And that got me thinking, okay, I just wanted to come back here so we could get to, we're at cycle number 4. This is the cycle sensor. I just got this, the settings at the end is going to say 70, 75, and 75 just for ease of communication. But the way this works is when it gets to the activation time, let's speed this up so we get there. And so when it gets to this activation time, that's what tells this thermal regulator to turn on, because it'll be cycle 5. This is what trips the cycle counter. And we'll get to see that in action right shortly. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of lag in the system, and that's why I decided to make it so that it starts at, well, basically just before the beginning of the workday, because it takes a little while for the thermal regulator to get it done. So it turns out that about 25% of a cycle is about what I allot for this. And one other thing, now you can see it firing up. This also trips this filter gate. And this filter gate is actually set to 150 seconds. That's a quarter of a cycle. And once that filter gate goes through, it turns the light on. So your dupes can shear just a little bit faster. And now you can see it's working. This one's, as these get a little bit older, they kind of lag a little bit more and more. So you might need to add a little bit more cooling to this, but on initial setup, one thermal regulator works good. And this is just here to make sure that the room stays hot enough to solidify or to melt this. As you can see that we've got 100 kilograms of tile of water here. This is a diamond tile. You can use any metal tile here. To none of the Dreckos need to be sheared, so Abe isn't showing up to shear them. Although you can see now that it's a room, a 12 tile room. That's the minimum size for a ranch, and he could come in here and shear all day. So now, this water down here is 100 kilograms per tile. You still have to have some gas in here so that the space heater will function. Now you can see it clicks over, the door shuts, and now it conducts both into the hydrogen and through this tile and this copper. You can see that it went so much quicker. it opens so much quicker than it closes. So then we have less than a cycle that these guys are cramped. And that's what I was aiming for with this system. And, you know, it works beautifully. All right, so now that I've shown you all of that, I want to, if you want to tame these guys and you're looking for an interesting solution to Dracos, not your conventional ranches, well, check this out. This is, well, I guess this is the Dracopod. And this is just crazy. When I threw this together, I had no idea this would be successful. Down here, I've got 6 bomb lily, and these require no duplicate labor. They just sit there and grow because they're sitting in hydrogen. And these guys come and nibble on the plants every once in a while to get a little bite to eat. And every single ranch that I've seen, you've seen this one over here, you know, most of the conventional ranches that you see are built like this, and they've got 6 bomb lily plants in there, as if somebody figured out that you need 6 bomb lily plants to support a full ranch of 8 Dracos. Well, I disagree. This is about to harden, so I'll give you a count of how many are in the room, but you can see there are a lot of Dracos in here. And this is just with one rancher. Where'd you go, Abe? We're going to look at Abe. I just want to show you his ranching skill. And his ranching skill is 11. He's gotten 4 from the ranching skills, and he's actually hugged a bunch of incubators. That's the only way to level ranching. He hugged a bunch of pack eggs and or fry eggs. And now you can see here, this is just with one level 11 or one skill level 11 rancher. And this is, he's busy doing other things too. And but he can come up here and he can groom them anytime, because this is a minimum size ranch right in here. So whenever the Dracos come into this room, they have the opportunity to be groomed. And then most of the time they hopefully hang out outside the grooming room, and then they're not cramped. When they're inside this room, if there's more than one and an egg and all that, they're going to be cramped while they're in that room. But, you know, they can leave that room and it's not a big deal. They can come down here, they can eat. Most of the time they're in a hydrogen atmosphere, so they just grow. Oh, you can see he's cycling now. I just want to... All right. Is that guy... All right. I just wanted nobody in the room. If you've got critters in an open door, they won't get counted when you do this to count the critters. And you can see we've got 4 Dracos in there and 36 Dracos over here. That includes the eggs. You can see there's a glossy egg here. This is one skill level 11 dupe that he's growing his own stuff. He's taking care of other duties as well, and he can support a 40 Draco. Well, I want to say ranch, but this isn't really a ranch, you know. So here you go, infinite reed fiber, and all you got to do is melt a little bit of phosphorus. Isn't it beautiful? Like up here, I started this thing on cycle 1020, 1020, and in this time, Abe has gotten 654 reed fiber, and I'm sure it should be way higher than that, because I had a door glitch where Abe couldn't get into this room. I had to rebuild the door and put it back, and so there should even be more there. And if there's any, if a glossy Draco ever hatches in here or whatever, odds are you'll get one shearing out of it for 100 plastic, and then it's going to starve to death, because they glossy Dracos, they don't eat bomb lilies, so their odds are they're going to starve in here. This is just a setup for just Dracos. So this is also a great thing, is if you actually are running conventional Draco ranches, that's what this chute here is for, is you drop in your overflow eggs in here, and then they live out their lives until they either starve to death or die of old age in here, and you get as many happy shearings as you can, as possible out of them. And I'm just surprised at how many are in here. At cycle 1020, I dropped in 6 Dreckos, and by cycle 1120, 100 cycles later, there were 24 Dracos and eggs in here. So it does take a little while to spin up. Like, you can't just fire this up and expect reed fiber to start coming out. No, this is going to take you, 100 cycles or 150 cycles to spin up. And this, as you can see, it's 310 cycles away, and now we've just made it to 40. Like, it took a while creeping from 30 to 40. So it takes a while to ramp up. But again, if you've got more dupe labor coming in here, like, you could easily put another grooming station in here and get rid of this stuff if you wanted to. I only put one because, well, A, I've only got one dupe, and B, this is available all the time. The grooming station, this will work all the time. Whereas the shearing stations, always put your shearing stations, these shearing stations at very high priority. I say 7, and everything else at 6 or lower. Because if you've got other shearing stations and these ones can be used, you want them to show up here and shear these, because it's only available for 1 cycle out of 5. And but back to the reason for one grooming station is Abe can show up anytime and groom a critter if there's one available here. Whereas only when this is hardened and this is turned into a room can he shear. So, and not to mention, I see him use all different machines, so he might actually need the 3, but this is a demonstration that for like a nice sized colony, and if there's 100 Dreckos running around in here, you're going to want 3 dupes to show up and shear these when that goes down. Are you interested in building the DreckaPod? Well, unfortunately, it's expensive. And let me show you just how expensive. Here we have phosphorite. Phosphorite, you will not find natural phosphorus in the wild at all. The only thing that you will find is phosphorite. And it always comes in 600 kilo blocks at some temperature. And the problem with phosphorite is it melts at 244 degrees. So we got to get this to 244 C. After it's melted, phosphorus doesn't melt until it's below 44.1 degrees. So then it'll turn into phosphorus, and then we can use it. But first of all, we got to get it to 240 degrees. Now, number one, if you've got access to steel and you have a steel aqua tuner, this is your easiest solution. Put a little bit of steam in there and put in some phosphorite, crank it up to 250 degrees, and this thing shouldn't overheat. You might need a little bit of liquid, and you can melt phosphorite very easily that way. Here we have the this is 2 gold amalgam aqua tuners. I tried it with 1, and you need 2. And you need 200 kilos of crude oil across the bottom, and these things will actually get to 250 degrees and melt the phosphorite before they break. But they're going to break. And then who cares? We can just take them apart and get the gold amalgam back. We're just going to let those run. That might not even melt as a demonstration before I show you the rest of these. Now, another option is, let's say magma spawned close to phosphorite. It's not very common, but it does happen. And then you can, this is a very easy way. You can see here, here's a little bit of phosphorite. I've just contained it in with some insulated tile so that we can control the temperature, keep this from, you can see these are starting to overheat now. Keep the heat contained as much as we can. This is an obsidian temperature shift plate because I don't want it to melt, although pretty much anything will work here, because we're going to take this temperature shift plate. This temperature shift plate is made out of coal. And coal, the interesting thing about coal is it melts at 277 degrees Celsius. So, boom, there it is. And you can see as soon as it gets to 277 degrees Celsius, it stops being a temperature shift plate. So it doesn't go up to 1400 degrees like this is. it just gets to 277, and then it becomes refined carbon, and boom, there you go. We've got liquid phosphorus. Now, if you want to cool it down, you know, it's pretty easy to cool down. You can take a temperature shift plate like this and just build it like that. It'll take the temperature away. Then you can deconstruct it, build it back again. Even using the same material, this will cool it down, and you can just do this until you've bled off enough heat that this goes down to something manageable. Keep it liquid though. You don't want to go below 44 because you want to keep it as a liquid. What happened here? All right, I just wanted to show that this was possible, and you can see we actually do have 600 degrees of gas phosphorus in there. You know, if you want to make it work by breaking some aqua tuners, this will work. As soon as this gets down below, well, it's pretty close to going liquid already. I'm pretty sure it's 280 degrees or something like that. Yeah, gas phosphorus liquefies. There it is. Yeah, there you go. Easy peasy. And if you're not exactly close to magma and you still want to use the magma method, you don't want to, or you don't haven't researched aqua tuners, or for whatever reason, you can do it this way with a couple of doors. These are just regular doors, not even steel doors, it's just copper doors. And then drop in your 600 kilos of phosphorus. Close this door first, and then close this door. And that closes it in. This has to be completely built in all the way around, or it'll pop the phosphorus out a corner or whatever, and that's why it's built like this. And then once you've got it in there, you can get rid of all of this, and then also get rid of this tile, and then you take the same cold temperature shift plate, boom, you put it in there, and now we're going to need another temperature shift plate to push it into the door. And now you can see this door is climbing in temperature. I just want to put another one there so that we don't overflow. And you can see it's just rapidly climbing. And now the phosphorus should liquefy. Phosphorus is kind of lagging behind in the temperature here. With this process, I've noticed that, we've lost that temperature. And I've just noticed that it takes 2 plates to get this done. And also, usually the magma is hotter. Usually magma is at 600 degrees or whatever. And yeah, there you go. Boom, done. And then you can either mop it up, or, you know, by deconstructing that door, now this is all below 150 a tile, and you can mop it up. So I've got debug mode on, so it insta mops. But there you go. That's how you can form phosphorus. If you didn't want to mop it up, you could do it with one of these as well. Don't put it down in there or it'll overheat. You can just put it above like this, and then they can get the liquid out from the bottom without overheating the pitcher pump. So there you go. If you want to build the Dracopod, this is how you liquefy phosphorite. There are other methods, but that's all I'm going to cover here. And also, I should mention that we need this phosphorus to be, we need 600 kilos. We need this to be 200 kilos. Well, I like to aim for 200 kilos per tile down here, because phosphorus forms a tile at 160 kilos. So it needs to be above 160 kilos. And I like to put it at 200 just because, well, for convenience, your phosphorite forms in tiles of 600 kilos. So, you know, getting 600 kilos is really easy. And another thing is, you notice here, every once in a while, this thing likes to gurgle out a little bit of phosphorus. I don't know why, but it just happens. So if you put 200 kilos of phosphorus down in here, rather than exactly 160 kilos per tile, this will continue to work even though it gurgles every once in a while. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that this is designed strictly for Dreckos. If you drop Glossy Dracco eggs in here, they're just going to starve to death because they don't eat bomb lily. Glossy Dreckos, they only eat mealwood and bristle blossom. So here's a couple options. I wouldn't really recommend this for Glossy Dreckos just because balm lilies are so much easier to maintain with regular Dreckos that they're completely labor free. Whereas here, like this is what you, if you wanted to start off, like this is what you would start off with, as both Dreckos and Glossy Dracos can eat meal lice, but they eat a lot more of it. Like when a Dracko goes to eat from a balm lily plant, they eat like 17% of its growth, and they're like full for a long time. Whereas if they eat mealwood, they eat like 67% of its growth. And they won't eat if it's fully harvested either. Like they'll only eat if it's between like 67% and 99%. So mealwood is not really ideal for this, and not to mention mealwood requires dirt. You can see I've got a dirt delivery system to try it, because I've only got one dupe and Abe ain't showing up here. And so this one uses mealwood, and this would work if you want to breed Glossy Dracos from normal Dracos, because mealwood increases the Glossy Draco chance from Dracos. Like I can show you here, you can see Drecklet egg got a 98%, and then it says here, if it eats mealwood, it increases the probability of Glossy Dracklets. So when you're starting off, you're going to need mealwood if you want Glossy Dracos. And the only reason you want Glossy Dracos is for plastic. And if you got a polymer press or whatever, you might not even want Glossy Dracos. But this option is here for the mealwood side. And then so this one could be a mixed one, where you could have both Glossy Dracos and regular Dracos in here. But I wouldn't really recommend it, because you're going to go through the mealwood really quickly. It's going to consume tons and tons of dirt, and you might even run out of dirt. Like dirt is not that renewable, so you'd have to have a solution to come up for the dirt. What I would recommend is, like, you might want to start with this and then convert it to Bristle Blossom. Here's a setup using Bristle Blossom. I put in a little bit of lights. This light is controlled by the automation down here, but the rest of these lights stay on just to keep the Bristle Blossoms going. And this just requires water. So this is a lot more sustainable. Usually you've got some steam vents or slush geyser or anything like that, so you can support this. This is the Glossy Dracko version only, because normal Dreckos can't eat Bristle Blossoms. So your normal Dreckos, if you drop them in here, they're only going to live to be about 33 before they starve to death, and you might get one shearing out of them. So if you're going to go with both Glossy Dreckos and regular Dreckos, I'd recommend building one of these for your Glossy Dreckos, and then build one of these for your regular Dreckos, and have separated branches. And yeah, you'll have tons of plastic and reed fiber forever. Also, Bristle Blossoms are a lot more efficient when it comes to feeding Dreckos, because I don't know the number off the top of my head. I think it was 30% or something like that. But Dreckos eat a lot less than the 67% they would eat of mealwood. And so you don't need, like, I was looking at this and I honestly thought, like, you could make this a lot bigger. Whoops, I took a picture. You can see that this room is actually, when this is solid, I got a bislight there just to show it. This one is actually 78. So you could make this bigger and put even more mealwood in, but I just don't think it's really that workable. So yeah, this one, I'd recommend this one for the Glossy Dracos. That's after you've got them bred, of course. Like if you've got Glossy Dracos on hand, build this and watch your plastic supply explode. And if you got regular Dracos, build this and you'll have all the reed fiber you could ever dream of. And this isn't even including the wild thimble reed that you find, or you might have a thimble reed near your bathroom to feed your dirty toilet water to. You can have so much reed fiber, it's incredible. And I'm not even including the phosphorite. This is a renewable source of phosphorite. You know, so if you're growing pinch of pepper nut, you can get the phosphorite from this, throw it into your pinch of pepper nut, and enjoy your pepper bread. And another thing, I don't really count this, but you also get meat from this. But these guys live such a long cycle and have such a long... I don't really consider a Dracko on my playthroughs. I haven't really used them as a food critter. I just use them for reed crit. And the bonus meat that we get is just bonus barbecue, you know. And with the new spaced out, you know, extra food, you can just feed it to the tree, right? Get some more resin. That, speaking of spaced out, there is one other option when it comes to spaced out. I do not know at how much resin you would need to put in here to get it to form a tile. I don't know that number, and it's not listed on the wiki. And we here at Tuxie Industries believe in finished products, so we're not picking up the DLC until it's out of early access. We're gonna pay the full price. And so I don't know, resin, the nuclear waste you would think might work here because it melts at 27 degrees, but you have to over pressurize nuclear waste to 1,473 kilos to get it to form a tile. And this won't work with, like, you'd need doors or something to compress it down. And this works because there's no doors to close this in to make it a room. So nuclear waste, I wasn't going to recommend nuclear waste, even if it did work. You want to radiate your Dreckos? Maybe you do, who knows. But nuclear waste won't work here, even though it's in the temperature range. And the only other thing is also from the DLC is resin, not Isoresin. This is just the resin, the regular resin that you get from the tree. It freezes at 20 degrees Celsius. So if you don't want to melt phosphorus, you might do it here, but then you're gonna, to keep this 20, it's always gonna be fighting the ranch because Dreckos just are kind of like their own little natural heat source. They kind of normalize the area that they're in to around 50 to 60 degrees just by their own body heat. You know, I don't know the exact mechanics behind it. This is just something that I've observed. So if you used resin here, then you'd have to have your thermal regulators would have to cool this down to like 18 degrees Celsius. And it would turn back really quickly, I'm sure, because the room would be hot in here, but it would take more energy to make this work. Whereas phosphorus is at the natural temperature, it kind of works. But, you know, for completionist sake, I just wanted to mention resin could be an option. Maybe I'll try it out on my playthrough. Yeah, looks like they're all sheared in here. So, if you don't... Now, this is a very niche sort of product. If you don't want to melt phosphorite, or if you don't have resin, which odds are you don't, you got to feed that tree, right? And if you got the base game, you don't even have resin. If you want to ranch Dreckos and you don't want to melt phosphorus, you don't want to use this system, here's the system for you. This is a conventional, normal Dracco ranch. Well, on the outside it is. You can see all of these are 96 tiles, maximum size ranch. And down here we've got our normal bristle blossoms, or not bristle blossoms, balm lilies. And these, they've got chlorine atmosphere, they just grow. And I got one Dracko running around in here. The center, this is where the overflow goes. Like, these are just normal ranches where you would have 8 critters, and, you know, we sweep up all the eggs, and all the eggs get dropped in here. This is the only tile that is not accessed by an auto sweeper. This one gets that one, but this one I put higher up so that it can't get that tile. So all the eggs get swept up through all of these here, all the conveyor loaders, and then they go through these filters. And the first one is a Drecklet egg, and the second one is a Glossy Dracko egg. And it'll just drop it on the floor here. And everything else we ship out. You know, the balm lily stuff, the phosphorite. I don't have power hooked up, so stuff's laying around here, but this is how I set it up. So you have your normal ranches on the outside. You have your 8 critters, 8 Dreckos. They get ranched in here, and this is really, you breed them, they're happy, they're not cramped or whatever. But once they're starting to produce the excess eggs, that you don't need to supply these ranches. I guess I forgot critter drop-offs, but So the center is your overflow. So now you've got 8 critters out here and 8 Dreckos over here, while all your eggs get swept up and they get dumped in here. And in here, you're going to have a horde of Dreckos, where they're going to be... Now, I set this one up differently. Normally, a room like this, they would starve to death in. You wouldn't put any food in here, and they would just starve. You'd get one shearing out of them, and then they would starve to death at age 33. You get the meat, and you're done with it. But in this particular model, I decided to do something different with your normal conventional ranch, and I put bomb lily inside the overflow chamber. So they're still going to be cramped, but they're not going to be hungry. And what this does is they're not going to lay eggs so much. Who cares? We've already got our eggs are being produced on these outside ranches. We don't care about egg production. So the fact that they're cramped and overcrowded and everything in this room, we don't care. We've already got enough eggs. So as long as they can stay alive, nibbling away on this bomb lily down here, they will continue to produce that sweet, sweet reed fiber until they either starve to death or they die of old age. Odds are they're going to starve to death, because you blow your mind how many you'll end up in here if you got like a full-size dupe colony. You could have like 40, 50 in here, plus 8 on each side. You'll just have so much reed fiber. And so why, you must be asking, why would something so beautiful and so simple like this work so easily? You don't need visco gel, you don't need anything fancy, you just need access to a caustic biome basically, and you can build all of this. You can get your hydrogen, you can get your Dreckos, you can get your chlorine gas, you can get everything you need to build this out of the caustic biome, and use conventional liquid locks, and you're good. You even get the phosphorite from the caustic biomes, but you know, you don't need to melt phosphorite to do this. Now you gotta the reason why Tuxie Industries is still selling you the DreckaPod is because the DreckaPod still has a major advantage over this center shearing room, overflow room. Is if you dump Dreckos into this overflow room, they're not going to produce eggs. And that's where the DreckaPod solves that problem by, well, we also make it easier on the dupes, because the dupes only have to show up, you know, 1 day out of 5 to work in this area. So it kind of helps that way. But the primary reason is so that if you've got more than 8 Dreckos in that room, or 8 Dreckos, 8 eggs, they'll become cramped and they won't produce eggs, and then you lose that extra productivity. Well, with the DreckaPod, these guys will continue to lay eggs. They won't lay eggs at cycle 100 like they normally would out in the wild, but they will still lay an egg before they die, most likely, you know, unless they starve to death. You know, I'm not saying that won't happen, but, you know, this is able to maintain the population so much better, and all you need to do is melt a little bit of phosphorite to do it, you know. If you're willing to lose all the reed fiber, the bonus reed fiber, and just do a conventional setup like this, and go hard. Most resources are pretty abundant in auction and not included, and this is a very optional niche build, but it's so cool to watch it work. You know, you don't need a diamond tile down here, but I had to put a diamond tile just so you can see the number. You know, you could relocate the signal, but you know, this keeps it all nice and compact. Again, if you're looking for the settings on this, I've got screenshots at the end of the video to tell you what I got all this stuff set at, and some blueprints. You know, I'm not attaching blueprints. I'm just going to attach a save file. You can make your own blueprints. Thank you very much. Thanks again for your patronage to Tuxie Industries, and please be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with our products. We welcome all feedback. If you're interested in more products from Tuxie Industries, or if you want to see our products demonstrated in survival mode, be sure to sound off in the comments below. I hope you get many cycles of faithful service from your DreckaPod. Complaints and refunds requests can be mailed to 50,000 Shattered Planet Way. Here are the schematics. The save is linked below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you were informed, entertained, or both. Catch you next time.